Hey guys, so this is my first YouTube video, but I wanted to do a video about sort of my experience and my process with law of attraction, law of assumption, and just manifestation in general. Recently, in the Reddit manifestation slash Neville Goddard subreddit, someone was asking for advice, and I had mentioned, hey, I've actually had a lot of success um, with manifestations in relation specifically to an SP. But I've also, been able to manifest two successful businesses. I live in San Francisco. I've basically just had a really kind of good life. And even before I found law of attraction and law of assumption, I was unintentionally manifesting. So once I learned how to really master that process, if you will, it just started coming much, much easier. And so I started getting some messages, like I said, people asking advice about how I mended my relationship with my SP, and putting law of attraction and law of assumption into place really helped me kind of get my self concept together and self confidence together, and really brought me this beautiful relationship and just a much healthier, happier version of me. So, one of the questions that I got, and I'm just going to read off a couple questions because I think that at least I know for me, when I first started learning about law of attraction and law of assumption, that hearing different people's perspectives was super helpful. So I'll probably mention a couple other YouTubers or a couple other people who do guided meditations that I really like and have been super kind of resourceful and helpful for me. But I figure that my personal take might be helpful to someone, even if one person gets something out of it. I kind of want to like help people, as so many people helped me when I was kind of starting out and going through my initial journey. And I'm still learning and I'm still growing and constantly, messaging my manifestation friends on Discord and Reddit and stuff, asking for advice and whatnot. But so I'm still learning and evolving too. But that's what I love about this community, is everyone's kind of growing and learning together. But one of the questions that I got in my Reddit DMs was, the person had said that they'd been, putting manifestation and law of attraction into place for some time, but that their situation was not improving. So they felt pretty lost. Basically, their SP story was pretty similar to my SP story. They said that their relationship ended because they, being the person who messaged me, was immature, awful, drove him away. And these are all direct quotes from what they said. And that she, or he, I think it was a she, was afraid that he's going to block me and move on, and that she has very bad anxiety. And so, one thing I want to mention is that a year ago, that 100% was me. I think it was a combination of past childhood trauma and kind of looking into patterns and things we learned as children and how that affects us in our attachment style, in relationships, in our day to day relationships. But also, I think for me, the pandemic and quarantine actually had a pretty negative effect on me, also. Just it just made me realize a lot of things about myself, I think. And so, my SP, my boyfriend and I, we broke up almost a year ago, actually. Like, I think yesterday was a year ago today, and now we are completely back together, fully committed, like talking about future, talking about marriage, kids, moving in together, a whole nine yards. But it was a very similar situation where it was my insecurities, it was my lack of self confidence, it was my really lack in love for myself and not understanding how someone else could love me that really drove my boyfriend at the time away. Well, same boyfriend now, but we were separated for some time. So we broke up in June, and we were kind of like dating ish, but we weren't officially back together until recently. But we were dating kind of throughout that time. But it was interesting because I found the law of attraction and law of assumption in September. Just I'd heard about it on Twitter. It was kind of happenstance. So one Friday night, I just decided I was gonna stay home, and I took an edible and just kind of like dove into this world of law of attraction, and it super resonated with me, and I started putting it into place immediately. And I noticed a shift immediately in how I felt, how I was perceiving myself, and that was instantly being reflected back to me. It was actually kind of scary how instant some of the changes were. But what I would say is that if you are having bad anxiety, or you're feeling, that you are immature, awful, or you drove him away, all these things. Basically, to me, the first thing I needed to do was take a look at my own self concept and my own kind of vision of myself. Um, Dylan James is one of my favorite manifestation YouTubers, and I'll link him below. But he talks a lot about this book called Psycho Cybernetics, and I started reading it. Woo, it's windy. I started reading it recently, and I was just reading it the other night actually, and they mentioned something really interesting, that your self concept is and how you picture yourself. Everyone has this picture in their mind of who they are. So even though you might not be able to put your finger exactly on it or explain it in a very clear way, in your mind, you know who you are, you know what you believe in. But that picture actually comes from so many different things. It comes from like our upbringing, our culture, where we lived, who we were surrounded by, just society in general. Also, like any friendships, any prior relationships, any sort of everything that we do and have done in our world kind of makes up this personality of who we are and this picture of who we are. The thing is we have this picture in our mind and we accept that picture as truth. That picture we see in our mind, that is us, and we don't ever question it, like, well, where did that picture come from? Like, where did, me being type A, like, am I really type A, or did I just have a parent who expected me to be type A because they needed to lean on me for things? Or basically, we're so malleable, our personalities to some extent are so malleable, and we can really craft ourselves into this person that we want to be by believing and acting and truly kind of living in the end, as you'll hear a lot, of being that person we want to be. So what I did, when my SP and I first split, and I was really kind of reinventing myself and trying to get myself concept and confidence back up, is I wrote down all the things that I wanted to be. So I wrote down kind of these characteristics, and what I did is I came up with an action plan, um, to where every day I would do something that aligns with one of those characteristics. So, for example, something I wanted to be, um, is funny, like funny, humorous, because I think when I was younger, I didn't necessarily have like the humor muscle built up just because my family was a little more stoic. I grew up in the Midwest in the country, and like I just wasn't really in tune with like pop culture and like funny jokes. And I love that humor and that comedy, but it's not something that I was really great at. So, on my list, I wrote down, it's probably like 10 characteristics I wrote down. One of them was like, um, you know, to be funny, to be able to make people laugh. And so, sure enough, I wrote down on my daily plan, like on Mondays, I'm going to set aside a couple hours in the evening to watch stand up comedy, to, watch pop culture references. I get on Twitter a lot and just like stay up to date with stuff. That's kind of like a sillier one, but something else is like, that I wanted to be, in the future, I want to be a good mom, right? Like, I want to be grooming myself and like setting myself up to be a good, mom. So, kind of reading, I have on my calendar that every Saturday I like to read a book that's about, child psychology, or about like how to be a better person, essentially. Another thing is that I want to be able to cook better, more food, better food, healthier food. So I say every Friday nights, if I don't have anything going on, like my plan is to set aside that time to make a healthy recipe. And basically, I came up with these 10 characteristics of really the ideal picture. If I could make myself whatever I wanted to be, what would that look like? I painted those 10 characteristics out, and I made a schedule for myself that lines up with that. Now, I will say that I do not follow that schedule to a T. Like, if I have friends that invite me to go out, or if there's something going on, then I'm going to do that, and, make sure that I'm not stressing myself out about following a specific routine. But it's nice because if I ever have that downtime and alone time, which alone time is really great, and I think that's something else that I kind of learned through this process, um, is that I can really put my downtime and alone time into an activity or thing that's helping me be more in line with that person that I want to be. And it's just been crazy, the amount of self confidence and, higher self concept that I've had, the more I put into those types of activities instead of just sitting on Facebook or sitting on Instagram or whatever, just sitting on my phone. I'm actually pouring energy into things that make me a better, more confident person, whether I have this SP in my life or whether I don't. And that in turn made me feel better inside, but also my SP. I started to realize my self worth, and my SP started to realize, like, oh shit, she actually is really funny. Like, she actually is a really great cook, and all these self doubts that I had. You might have heard the phrase, everyone is you pushed out. So I noticed that all these insecurities that I had, like, oh, I'm bad at cooking, would be reflected back to me back in the day in the old story. But now that my self confidence is better, and self concept is high, I no longer hold those beliefs about me. And therefore, the people that I surround myself with no longer hold those beliefs about me as well. And it's kind of hard, and you do have to persist through. I think that you've probably heard this from other law of attraction coaches and YouTubers and Reddit and whatnot. But really, it's all about persistence and really believing in your heart that good things are going to come your way, and that it really is all in divine timing. You can't rush the timing. You can't, the universe is going to give you, the universe and God is going to give you what it's going to give you when it thinks the timing is right. So if the way that I thought about this is before, when my SP and I weren't back together officially yet, I would think to myself, okay, right now, what the universe, God, whatever you want to view it as, is doing is prepping me to be the best version of myself in that relationship. So when we do enter a new relationship, I'm the best version of myself. But on the other side, it's also prepping him to be a better version of himself, because there are things, all of us can improve in some way, right? And there are things that, like, I would have liked to see shift in the old story on his end too. And sure enough, like, I did see those things evolve and change and improve over time. So I really do believe that, like, if your desire or your manifestation hasn't unfolded yet, it's because the universe is prepping you on, or not prepping you, but prepping the circumstance and the situation, so that when it does come to fruition, it's a perfect manifestation. Um, so moving on here, and then there was a quote too about I have really bad anxiety. This is actually something that I struggled with a lot too. And anxiety, if you don't have anxiety, and I know it's kind of hard to tell, like, do I have anxiety or do I not? Because people feel it to different degrees and everybody's bodies are different. But I definitely had a lot of anxiety and did a lot of things to try and ease that anxiety, and still do to this day. So, for example, people say meditation. All right, there's a truck out here. Um, People say meditation. That's great. But for me, I didn't really even know where to start. So, something that was really cool for me is that I used this headband called Muse. I'll link it down below, but essentially it goes on your forehead and it sits kind of like right here, and it goes behind your ear, and it reads different it has like different sensors that sit on different parts of your head, and it kind of reads the waves. There's biofeedback, and I couldn't tell you the science behind it, and I don't know how accurate it is, but it reads how you're concentrating and how you're focusing on your breath, and if you're relaxed versus if you're anxious while you're meditating. And I have found it to be super, super helpful. And I noticed that it does feel like it works to me. So when I hear, the birds chirping are like the positive, and when the wind gusting, that tells you, like, hey, you're kind of losing focus. And whenever I hear the wind gust, I can kind of, like, okay, focus back on my breath, like, think of my breath and not let my mind wander. And it's really, really taught me how to meditate, and how to really just stay focused in that moment. And also, something that I started doing was that I started during my meditations not just think about breathing, but if you've ever heard of SATs before, which is state akin to sleep, it's basically like the feeling or state right before you fall into a deep dream state. Neville Goddard said this is one of the best ways to sort of visualize what you want or your manifestation. I actually have been doing SATs during my meditation, so I'm concentrating on breathing, but that's also the time, the 5 to 10 minutes, or you can do more if you want, where I really focus on, okay, what does the end look like for me? Like, if it's, my boyfriend and I at the park, we're married with our kids, like, let me picture that, like, on a weekend, and I visualize, like, what would that feel like? Like, what would I feel inside? Like, Would I hear kids running in the background? Like, would I smell the barbecue food on the grill? Like, what does that look like? And that's really helped me a lot. So meditation definitely. Um, Taking you time, so taking alone time and taking space and just time to focus on you has been really helpful for me. I'm very extroverted. I'm always go, go, go. In the past, when I had anxiety, a lot of times I would use going out with friends um, or going to a lot of events or filling my calendar to kind of escape having to be alone with my thoughts or feelings. And I didn't really realize that until I started practicing kind of the art of being bored, is what I call it. And I realized that once you start practicing the art of being bored, you really aren't bored. Like I don't ever feel bored when I'm by myself. I'm like, okay, this is what it finally feels like to like enjoy my own company. And I feel like that helps a lot with self concept and self confidence as well. And then a third thing that I feel like is not widely talked about yet, but I'm hoping that stigma changes, is that I think there is, for me at least, anxiety medication has been incredibly helpful. And I know not everyone has a positive experience with it, and it's not for everyone. But I think that a lot of people these days talk about therapy and how helpful therapy is, and there's less of a stigma sort of around therapy, but there's still a stigma around anxiety medication. Like I take an SSRI, which I forget what it stands for, serotonin something. Um, but it's been incredibly helpful for me. And, again, I know certain people say it gives them side effects. I haven't had any side effects. And for me, it feels like where in the past I had this anxious feeling in my chest 24/7. Now I don't have that anymore. So now it feels like now it feels like I have finally have like the space to be able to be me, and like I can self-regulate and I can actually like ground myself when I do have anxious or negative thoughts. It's as simple as like, okay, I'll go to my journal and I'll script out, or I'll journal out, or I'll go, do a 5-minute meditation like we just talked about, or I can kind of take those steps to self-alleviate and I guess, regulate is the word. Um, Whereas in the past, the anxiety and the feeling in the chest would be so overpowering, it would be pretty impossible or pretty hard not to react. And what that is doing is it's teaching me how to slowly put those self regulating practices into place. So, because I don't plan on being on medication forever, and I'm not, the dosage isn't crazy high or anything, but I do plan on coming off of it slowly. So it's just kind of once I feel comfortable and like I'm able to do that alone, I'll slowly taper off so I no longer need it. But I don't think it's talked about enough, and I think that it is very helpful for a lot of people. But again, not for everyone. Definitely talk to your doctor, obviously. But I just want to. I think a lot more people are on anxiety medication than is talked about. Like I said, I know a lot of friends who are on it, and it definitely it definitely helps. Um, and then let me see what else here. And then something else I mentioned I do this is I journal a lot. So anytime I start having that doubt or that feeling of feeling lost or feeling like, my manifestation might not come to fruition, I journal out. So literally this whole journal is filled with just like me journaling, but when I journal, I don't journal about the now. So I don't journal about the 3D, right? So I journal about the 4D, as in what's going to happen in the future. Because, as Neville says, as Law of Assumption says, the 4D, the future has already happened. We just need the 3D, what we visually see, to catch up. So all this has already happened. I just need to decide, and you need to decide what your 4D looks like. So for me, I journal out like exactly what I want to happen. So if, let's say, my SP or even a friend and I had like a little argument and we were trying to resolve it, then, or whatever, we were just like doing our own thing. And so I'll journal out like, okay, SP or friend loves me. They feel bad. Like we come together and we're stronger than ever, kind of deal. Or not. It doesn't have to be bad situations. So every night too, like even if I'm like great vibrations, high vibrations, feeling awesome, I'll still journal at night, and because things can always be a little bit better, right? Like you're creating your dream life. So it's like, okay, if things are great now, let's take it one level up. How can we make it just a little bit better? So I'll dream about like, or not dream. I mean, I will dream too, but I'll write about in my journal like, oh, SP texted me that he misses me tonight, or tomorrow, one of our clients awards us more work or like gives us more jobs or whatever. Just kind of whatever I want that next step to be, and I'll write out my journal, and it just kind of embeds it into my subconscious, which I like a lot. Let me see here. So then something else is that on the back of my journal, I'm sure you all have heard about affirmations and just positive statements and how it can feel silly to say those affirmations, but it really does actually embed into your subconscious. And it's funny because way before learning about law of attraction and law of assumption, one of my therapists that I had for a little bit, she actually mentioned that when you're feeling, or when I'm feeling these anxious thoughts, to basically affirm back, like write down statements and affirm these affirmations back. And she said it would feel weird, but over time it starts to feel more natural and your subconscious starts to believe it. And I honestly, like back when she told me that, I didn't really buy into it. It wasn't until I found Law of Assumption that I was like, okay, we're gonna give this a try. And I cannot tell you how true it is that repeating affirmations does feel weird at first. It does feel like a lie, but then over time you really do start to believe it. The more you repeat them, the better. So fortunately now I'm in a pretty good spot where I don't have to do affirmations daily. Like I'll do them here and there if my SC is wavering a little bit or if I'm feeling particularly anxious that day. But I do have a bunch of different affirmations that I keep in the back on the hardcover of my journal, of my scripting journal, that I do repeat to myself, you know, and whenever I need to. Like I used to do it morning and night, 3 times in the morning before I started work, and then 3 times at night before I went to bed. But now I just do it when I need to. But you know, these affirmations are anything from SP loves me more than anything and is fully committed to me. And that was, you know, one I wrote a while back, and now that's true, you know. One of them is, you know, I'm a catch and I'm a 10. Like, why wouldn't my SP want me? No one compares. Basically, just kind of, you're thinking that you're your own cheerleader, right? You're hyping yourself up and you're telling yourself the things that you would tell a friend. Like, you would tell your best friend that you truly believe deserve the world. Like, you should be saying those kinds of things to yourself. And to me, it helped to write it down. And again, it felt weird at first. I was sitting there, I'm like, I'm a catch. Like, no one compares to me. But it's like over time, you're like, okay, yeah, like I am unique. Like I am a catch. Like, why wouldn't I believe that? You're a catch. Like, we're all catches, right? Like, but it's true. Like, I don't know. We just need to believe it ourselves. Like, other people believe it. We need to believe it. And then I have one sort of like in the end, like the end state. Um, where I say, you know, SP and I are married, we're living together and working together, super happy, and we're best friends. We're building our life and starting a family. And now my end goal is a little more specific because now I'm getting closer and closer to that true end goal. So it'll keep evolving over time, just as, you know, I imagine your manifestations will, and really everyone's, because once your manifestation comes into the 3D, and you know you're living it, it's like, okay, now the world is your oyster, what's next? um but anyway, so those are just some affirmations that I like to keep in my little journal here. I do have, there were some other questions that were asked, but this video is already getting a little long. We're about 30 minutes now, but like I said, I've never done a YouTube video before, but I watch a lot of manifestation videos, and I feel like my journey is maybe unique from other people's journeys, or maybe my perspective could help someone in a way that maybe resonates with them. Because again, I have my favorite YouTubers and favorite subreddits that I follow and Discord channels that I follow, um, but sometimes different things resonate with me best when people say them in a different way. So it could be the same message but tweaked a little bit, just the way they say it or said it, and that resonated a lot with me. And I would bookmark all these different resources and I would refer back to them a lot. So that's another thing. If I was having a really rough day and I knew that there were 4 Reddit posts or threads that resonated with me particularly well, I would save them. And then on my days where I was feeling bad or just kind of in a rut, because that will happen, you're not going to feel happy and positive 24/7. It's definitely a muscle and a skill that you have to build up. But for me, I would refer back to those, or you know, I have a lot of Dylan James videos, or um, Create Your Future videos. I really like Amanda, and I think her name's Kelly, the blonde. She's great. But a lot of great videos and resources out there, but I definitely recommend saving them. Happy to link anything below if this is helpful to anyone. Definitely tell me what kind of resources you want or you need. Something else too that's been really helpful in my self-concept journey is actually do intermittent fasting, but it's a little longer than your standard. So I do 48 and 6 to 8, depending on kind of the day and what's going on. And have started exercising and stuff, which isn't anything that I ever used to do before. And just a lot more focused on my nutrition too. So as my life and self concept over the past year has started to become a lot more positive, I've been able to add more little positive things to my life, and that'll keep building. There's still a lot I want to do, but if anyone's interested in hearing about that, I could definitely do a video on that too. But I will answer some more of these Reddit questions later, another day. But just wanted to put it out there, and I hope this is helpful. And yeah, manifest away, my friends, manifest away. All right, I'll see you. Bye.